All right. So in this class, we will discuss the following topics, which are shown here: the introduction to Bitcoin and blockchain, identity management, transactions, record keeping in blockchain, consensus, frequently asked questions. What are the data structure for Bitcoin, which essentially is blockchain, but in the blockchain we have sequence of records, right, connected to each other. So what is that specific data structure, and how do we mint the Bitcoin? Okay, we'll study all this. Yeah, okay. Uh, and these are the places where I have taken the presentation. So there are a lot of information available on internet at various universities and also at many companies that are involved in development of Bitcoin and blockchain. Uh, so these are the two books that we follow, and most of the universities are using these two books. These are nice books to read. First book is freely available for download. The question is that what is Bitcoin? It's a currency. It's a digital currency. Currency in different available now, right? I mean, every country has a currency, right? And we have banks, and we have conversion of money, and we have digital money nowadays, right? Your, say, for example, your credit card, where you can buy things on credit, or you can do electronic transfer, or you can pass on money or transfer money to anybody using large number of mechanisms. So the question comes then, why do you need Bitcoin then? Okay, and who is running this Bitcoin? See, the currency that we use today in India is available to us by Government of India. So Government of India is responsible for keeping track of, whole currency that we use. So there's one central entity, and then we have various structure within that, say RBI or bank or whatever. Okay. So Bitcoin has to be managed by somebody. Who are those guys? And then what is then blockchain? Okay, what is the relationship Bitcoin and blockchain? Can we use blockchain for any other application apart from Bitcoin? What are those? What is, if it is money that is being accepted at various shops or various companies or various banks? Can we convert Bitcoin into actual money that we use, and vice versa? How do we start buying Bitcoin? Okay, so some of these points we'll try to answer in this presentation. Please feel free to ask questions, and whatever I know, I will let you know. The question is that what is blockchain technology? Why is it important? People say that in future, the whole banking sector is going to change. Okay, and the blockchain will be at the center of any transaction that we'll do. Okay, and because it's based on internet, as internet is becoming popular, reaching with people through mobile phones or through other mechanisms, say broadband, or now we will have 5G, we are running 4G, and so on. So internet is reaching to almost everyone in the world. So why not use the new types of currency then? So blockchain is becoming very important, and blockchain technology market is going to reach 7.7 billion by year 2024. So the question that I'm going to ask you is that when we say market, then what does it mean? Now, notice the word technology market. It's not the market. See, when we say market, then it's all overall transactions done by blockchain. blockchain technology, right? Whatever, for example, somebody is transferring millions of bitcoins or thousands of bitcoins, right? So that, and then convert this in terms of say dollars, then you say that's the volume of money that is changing hands, or that's in transaction. When we say technology market, essentially it means that the money the companies will earn by creating products or providing services based on blockchain technology. So the blockchain technology is going to be used in future as people make products, provide services, and so on. So that technology market is going to reach 7.7 billion, which is quite big. Okay. It's important because a large number of companies have started working on it, right? So there are Bitcoin exchanges, Bitcoin mining companies, Bitcoin wallets, Bitcoin payments, and Bitcoin financial services. Then there are a lot of infrastructure companies, right? And then a lot of companies that are working in new generation of Bitcoins or blockchain, right? The big data companies are working in these technologies. Gambling companies are also started using Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin in some sense is so decentralized that any two people can participate in that, right? As long as you have internet connection, that's it, right? And government often doesn't come to know about it. So the government has a big challenge how to take tax on the transactions. If the money changes hand between two people, government will not come to know. Government usually come to know about it when you convert this money or you buy something from this, and that company reports the transaction to government. So this is a big tool in the hands of criminals. For example, if my account is hacked by a criminal sitting in, say, Russia, okay, and then person is kind of ransomware. It has encrypted all my hard disk and everything, right? And my hard is important because it contains a lot of information. So I may want to somehow, manage the situation, right? And how can I manage? Only thing it can be managed is by payment, because only that person has key to decrypt it. The person will ask money in terms of what? If I give him dollar or fund transfer, then person will be caught. So criminals are using Bitcoins for, to take money from victims. Why blockchain technologies? Again, large number of companies are involved. I mean, you can find almost all big companies like Goldman Sachs or BNP Paribas or Wells Fargo, whatever, JP Morgan, and so on and so forth. So almost all companies that are dealing with finance and investment and even communication, like Cisco, you can find name like Cisco, or all are involved either in development of the technologies or started doing business with, or providing or selling their products using Bitcoin. Okay? And corresponding data structure is blockchain. So now remember that Bitcoin is an application of blockchain technology. Blockchain just provides technology, or it's essentially a data structure or ways of use of data structures and so on. Right? So one application is Bitcoin. Although Bitcoin started first, and from that, a blockchain evolved as a data structure. So Bitcoin was a motivation flow. And you can see large number of companies, big companies are involved in the development of blockchain technologies or doing business with blockchain technologies. Like Visa has collaborated with IBM, and they have launched their product about 2 years back. Similarly, Microsoft is developing blockchain, which they would have developed by now, and they're collaborating with Walmart. Okay, so now let's come to the definitions of cryptocurrency and blockchain. Cryptocurrency is completely digital, formless currency that is tied together using computer science, cryptography, and economics. So it's just digital technology. It's a formless in the sense that there is a currency called Bitcoin. That's it, right? But there is no, you can't see it physically. Now, important word here is cryptography. Without cryptography, the whole technology doesn't exist. We'll see what features of cryptography, right? We have seen confidentiality, integrity, etc. So what features of that or what properties of crypto we are going to use here? Bitcoin, of course, is a cryptocurrency, but Bitcoin is not the only cryptocurrency. A large number of cryptocurrencies have started being developed and all this. Blockchain is a data structure behind cryptocurrency. It's a method of storing data amongst multiple parties that ensure data integrity without requiring trust. Notice here the last part of the sentence, which is without requiring trust. It means that it's based on the concept that if large number or more than 50% people are honest, then this technology will work. I will see how. Now, remember, all other methods that we have dealing with money is based on trust. Trust on whom? Trust on government. Then trust on other, for example, trust on central bank. Okay, trust on governor. Right? When you deposit your money, physically hard-earned money or currency or notes in bank, you just go and give the money to somebody. A bank, say for example, some bank, say SBI or HDFC. You are giving your money because you trust them. Okay, so the current mechanisms is based on trust. How cryptocurrency can work or blockchain work without having trust on a central authority. So Bitcoin was created by Satoshi Nakamoto. Okay. Now, who is Satoshi Nakamoto? Nobody knows. Okay, so this is kind of not the real name of the inventor. So Satoshi has anonymous identity. Why does Bitcoin matter? Essentially, is purely digital or not controlled by any central entity. People create that. So many people didn't believe in government controlling everything. Okay. So they wanted it to be self-governed. They wanted it to be truly universal currency, okay, which anybody can earn and anybody can transact with. Okay. So these were the ideas which created this movement called cypherpunk movement, and then people have been trying to develop cryptocurrencies, and many attempts in the past have failed, but this attempt by Satoshi became a hit, right? So it became popular. We'll see why. The core ideal of the whole game is that avoid trust in institutions, which is banks or government. All right. This slide shows how our system works today. Okay. First point is, first important parameter of the current system is identity management. So first thing first is that you need to identify yourself to the bank before becoming a customer. Okay. If you go to a bank, just be yourself. I mean, just go there and say that I want to withdraw money and this is my account number. Is that sufficient? No, it is not sufficient, right? So the bank officer will ask you first prove yourself, right? That you are you. How do you prove it? You will then have to show your some identity card, which identity card, possibly the identity card given by government. Say for example, your Aadhaar number or Aadhaar card or your passbook. Okay. And passbook plus identity card, right? So until bank is sure of your identity, they will not give the money to you. Okay. Second important is services the banks offer, right? The services, what do they do is that you can deposit money, you can redeem money, or you can transfer money. So these are the big services. And third is record management. Okay, notice that banks have centralized record management. It's a central database, whether it's HDFC or whatever bank you are dealing with, right? They have just one central database, and there might be copies of that. It's not distributed database. When we say distributed database, it means that many are distributed all over, and then maybe different uh, copies of this database will have different data. Here we are dealing that with just centralized database is my account information. The money that I have, the transaction I have done is there in main database, and money or the information is retrieved from them or copied to so-called shadow databases from that. And the third thing is okay, record management is tracking the account history, right? Particularly for audit. A sequence of transaction you might have done over last 5 years should be all trackable. And of course, the trust that we have discussed, right? We trust in the bank. Of course, not all banks are trustable. You must have heard of PMC Bank went bankrupt and people couldn't withdraw money. So not all banks are trustable, but still the concept is that we trust some and then we deal with them. Okay? All right. So now these are the important properties about money. And when we are creating cryptocurrency, then we have to think about it having this property in cryptocurrency. That's the Bitcoin. All right. So these are the common type of payments. I can, for example, deposit money in the bank, or I can withdraw the money. I can transfer it. If I have money, then I can buy something from grocery shop, or I can instead of having a hard currency, I can use credits, right? Using credit card, or we can use debit cards, or these are all known mechanisms. Right? However, the concept is that there is one centralized authority called bank, and these banks are interconnected. In some sense, they can exchange money among each other using some protocol. But Bitcoin replaces that. Bitcoin is just distributed mechanism, right? Without having a centralized authority. Okay, it's becoming popular because the fees that they charge is very small in comparison to fees we pay nowadays for bank services. Say transaction of money, say Western Union, for example, if you notice how much money do they charge just to convert money from one currency to another. Sometimes it is 3% or 4%, or sometimes even more than that, right? And conversion of money is required because when you travel to, say, for example, US, you have money in rupees, you convert into dollars, and that all these parties in between charge 3 to 4% money from you just for this simple transaction. If you have Bitcoin, then you don't need to convert, right? If Bitcoin is acceptable, if you earn Bitcoin here, sitting in India, it doesn't matter. You can use Bitcoin anywhere. Okay? And when you have to transfer it to somebody, then there's small fee. So you gain in the process of using Bitcoin. Transactions are comparatively faster. Okay. accepted by thousands of businesses, which we have already looked earlier. Okay? So these are the important components of Bitcoin currency. First is identity management. You are the owner of money and you need to identify yourself. In HDFC Bank or SBI Bank, we have account number or customer ID. And then you have identity given by government, and all these in combination creates your identity. Similarly, in cryptocurrency, how do you create the identity of individual users? Say, for example, me. And how do we are going to do transactions? Ability to send and receive Bitcoin securely. And then we are creating a totally distributed system or distributed ledger that will be maintained across the network. How do we achieve at any transaction? How do we know that any transaction is a valid transaction? This is through mechanism of consensus, and here we call it trustless consensus. Because Bitcoin or blockchain technology is very clear that all the parties, all the people in the world are not honest. All right. So what are the components of Bitcoin? First is ledger. So ledger should be publicly visible. It means that each one of us can see exactly happening in blockchain or Bitcoin transactions. Right? All Bitcoin transactions happening in the world are visible to everybody who has internet. You can see exactly what transfer is happening. Okay. In traditional banking system, you can't see that how much money you are transferring to your friend. Here, I can see what's happening between two identities. Okay. Now, ledgers cannot, once created, cannot be changed. We can only append. Okay. So ledgers will go on increasing in length. It means the new records will be appended. That's it. Okay, you cannot change the records that have been done in the past. Third thing is immutable or unchangeable. You can't modify it, right? And log is available. Okay. And then how do we transact cryptographically? Okay. So these are two important components. Blockchain, we have already discussed, is nothing but a data structure among multiple parties to ensure data integrity. Okay. So here what we have shown is a blockchain structure. Okay. The new block, each one of these is a block, and this block, when new block is created, this is added to existing block. Okay, it's exactly the same block. This is part of the same blockchain that started by Satoshi right in the beginning. The first few blocks he created, and after that, blocks are getting appended. And these blocks are visible to everybody. If you want to see what Satoshi has created about 20 years back or 30 years back, 20 years back, it will be very, you can see in great detail. Okay. So technology behind cryptocurrency that is receiving attention because of immutability and transparency. Immutability, of course, data committed to blockchain cannot be changed, and transparency is that everyone can see the transaction. It's a distributed ledger or shared database where anybody can hold a copy. If you want a copy of this transaction or blockchain, you can also have it. Any questions? All right. Okay, let's move ahead. So key attributes of blockchain are decentralized, fine. We already discussed this. Distributed ledger, a shared database where everyone in the ledger holds a copy, fine. Consensus, if you are transacting with somebody else, right? Then all parties have visibility of that, but there has to be consensus among the parties for your transaction to become valid. Okay? And consensus is based on proof of stake and proof of work. We'll look at these concepts later. And immutability that we have already studied, right? This immutability happens here because of cryptographic hash function. Data committed to blockchain cannot be changed. Okay. All right. So blockchain we can define is method of storing data in which location of storage, the way the data grows and changes, and who has control over data is different from traditional systems. How is it different? The only difference is that it's decentralized. Centralization, we have seen there is a central authority. Authorization, because there has to be some senior officer who will authorize all transactions. Censorship, not everyone can see everything. Single point of failure. What happens? The central database fails or is hacked. Right? Then very difficult for bank to operate for some time, right, until they recover the data from somewhere. So decentralization has many advantages, right? So it could be the verification is simple, and the decision on state of system is by consensus. Okay, it's also peer-to-peer, and by the mechanisms are of course that we studied, right? By consensus, having distributed ledger and immutable. So what? All right. So now let's look at identity management. It means that if I am opening a Bitcoin account, how will I be identified? So, identity in our daily life, we have already discussed through various means like PAN number, passport number, Aadhaar card number, etc. Our name, date of birth, address, parents' name, etc. Right? In Bitcoin, there is no central entity, right? So, somebody will create for us our identity. And there is a mechanism, right? Algorithms available that. So our identity, if I am opening a Bitcoin account, my identity comes with pair of keys, which is public key and private key. When we studied asymmetric encryption, then we have seen that we have two keys, right? One is our private key for signature, and there is a public key to see what encrypted packet contains, right? So here everyone will have a public key and a private key. Each entity is represented with public key. So everyone outside will know with my public key. When somebody is transferring me money, then they will be transferring money to my public key account. Okay, public key using of course. And all right, so it's a private key we're using to transfer the money. When I use my private key, then I'm doing a signature on that. Okay, we studied this concept, and then a private key is essentially used to transfer the money, okay, to somebody else. Okay, and corresponding. All right, and if somebody has transmitted or sent me a message through public key, then I need my private key to unlock that transaction. So basically, everyone will have private key and public key. And private key is generated at random, and public key is generated from private key. Okay, so private key, how do we generate private key? That's interesting here, right? I mean, one can easily generate it through some mechanism, okay, which is absolutely random in nature. Now the question is that can two people have same private key? Chances are very, very low. We will come to that point later. So repeat, public key is for receiving and private key is for redeeming. Here is the example. So we have Alice. Alice has a public key, is something that's written here, and then Alice also has secret key, which is private key. We call it secret key because we can represent with SK. Okay, which is this one. And similarly, Bob has private key, public key, and private key, which is SK. All right. And apart from this, no personal information is required. Okay, does this mean Bitcoin is anonymous? So all your identity now is your public key. That's it. Private key, of course, is with you, which nobody else would know. Otherwise, they can do all kinds of transactions. Only public key is your identity now to outside world. Okay, and there is no limit on how many accounts you can have. No restriction on keys that have been taken. Now, remember one thing, that when we say it's anonymous, all the people in the world can see your public key, but they will not know who's the person behind that. It's only you who will know who's the person behind that. Okay? The public key, so all transaction is happening with respect to public key. That's it. Now you can see some entity whose public address is, say, whatever Alice's public key is HUK67H9FYZ, has transferred 1,000 Bitcoins to, say, Bob. That's all the information is, right? But you will not come to know whether this key is kept with me or Mr. Trump or maybe Ambani. Nobody will know about it. All right. So Bitcoin is hidden in large number of public keys, which is 2 raised power 160. Which is a very, very huge number. Now, although it looks very small when you look it as a number, but you let us look at the example, right? So now when we read these randomly, there is a chance of having some chance of having a clash or such that two people will have same key. Now this method says the chance of having overlap is very, very small. So it's like this: population of world in 2017 was 7.5 billion. So it means that if we have so many keys, then each person will have 2 raised power 127 addresses or keys all for themselves. Another example says that number of grains of sand on Earth is 2 raised power 63. Okay, and assume 2 raised power 63 such Earths. Okay, and that will make 2 raised power 126 total grains. Now, if you randomly pick up a grain from so many Earths, what is chance that every other person who's picking another grain will have same, will be almost same sand? It's very, very less, right? So you pick up a grain of sand and throw it off. Other person who picks up another grain of sand, it turns out the same grains that you have thrown, probability is very, very small. Okay, hence these numbers or your personal identity, a pair of public and private key can be picked up at random from such a large number of number base. Any question? Are you able to understand it? Yes, no? Okay. All right. So now let's move into transactions. So this slide gives the example from traditional method, right? So there is central manager who keeps tracks of all the records, like in traditional banks, right? I mean, you transfer money to somebody else, then your account will show less money and somebody account will show costly money. And this whole transaction takes time. So required properties here are authentication, signature, and integrity. When you transfer money, for example, using check, you have signature. When you do it electronically, then you have to log into account and actually transfer money. So there's the concept of authorization. When you log into account, it will authorize you, authenticate you, and authorize you, and then you can do the transaction. In the whole process, there is a concept of integrity. That transaction, when you send say $10 to your friend, then the amount should remain the same till the transaction is complete. So $10 shouldn't become $11. So the data value in the transaction should remain the same. Okay. How do we say that transaction is valid? We can say when the medium of the transaction is valid, it means the transaction is happening, let's assume, over some say using some database and using some protocols, and the whole set of entities should be valid. And the value should not change over time, right? So in the sense that if you have deposited $10 or 10 bitcoins, it should remain 10 bitcoins. Of course, there is a concept of interest, etc. Forget about that. The value by itself should not change. It should have a stable medium of exchange, and then there has to be identity: who is giving and who is receiving. And also, important thing is the person who is giving you should have money to give, or he shouldn't give same money to multiple people together. Say, for example, I have $10. I can't give you $10, and I can't give your friend $10. Right? So these are very important concepts. And essentially, we can say that there are basically three important points that are needed. First is the proof of ownership. In Bitcoins, we have proof of ownership using our private key. Okay, we can do signature with that, and then we should have enough funds, and then no other transaction using the same funds. Right? It means that we should not be able to do multiple transactions with the same amount. Okay, let's take an example. Alice is sending money to Bob. Okay. Now here, Alice's identity is with her public key, which is PKA. PKA is public identity of Alice, and so PKA is transferring one Bitcoin to PKB, which is Bob. So PKB is the public key of Bob. Okay. So the transaction would be, so PK, which is HU whatever, sends one Bitcoin to Bob, whose public key is this one. Okay, that's the transaction. Okay, so what Alice will do is that this transaction she will encrypt this using her secret key or private key, and so this is essentially a transaction. Okay. Now, who will make this transaction valid? And of course, the whole mechanism will make this transaction valid. Whole Bitcoin mechanism using blockchain. Okay, and then second question is that anyone can check Alice's intent. Okay, it's not really a question, but it's just a statement that when Alice is making this transaction, everyone will know that PKA is transferring money to PKB and amount is 1 Bitcoin. So this transaction will have visibility to everyone. Even now, if you want to see, you can see who is transferring to whom. Okay. Now, how do we keep records in blockchain? This is a traditional model where we have centralized database. Okay. So while in blockchain, everyone can have a database, a distributed database or blockchain, right? However, usually it is kept with some people who are called miners. So let's assume that these are the people involved in transactions. And these people could be miners also. Miner, M-I-N-E-R, miners, so people who mine. Okay, and then these are the transactions. Like Justin is sending to Oscar 4 bitcoins, and Justin is sending to himself 1 bitcoin. Oscar is sending to Rusty 5 bitcoins, and Oscar is sending to Oscar, that's himself, 1 bitcoin. Now these are, of course, I mean, we'll see what does it mean really. So where do we store all these transactions? In a distributed repository. So it's like this. So this may be, let's say these are 4 transactions, and we will keep these transactions either in a block or it could be part of different blocks. We will see that. And however, whatever information we have, Rusty has, same information will be available with everyone. So these are essentially shown as different blocks, and each block contains certain number of transactions. But everyone will have same copy of the blockchain. And this data structure we call it a blockchain. All right, any question? Okay, we'll look at these in detail. So this is further explanation of the concept. So something that's shown here is one block. All the transactions between some time period are put into one block. Time period could be 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Okay. Right. So between say time t and t plus 1, there will be one block. And this block, when it is made, is appended to previously made blocks or in other blocks. Okay, so the transaction is something like this. Alice sends 1 Bitcoin to Bob, Alice sends 0.07 Bitcoin to Chris, and so on. Okay, and one block is made and appended to existing blockchain. So transaction is something like this. Alice has 2 Bitcoins and Bob has 5 Bitcoins, and after these transactions, right, the new state is as follows, which is Alice will have 0.3 Bitcoins and Bob will have 4.8 Bitcoins. And this is that. Now, based on these records, one can arrive at this information. Now, let's assume that Alice has only 0.3 Bitcoin left out and she wants to do a transaction of, say, 1 Bitcoin to somebody else. Now, that will not be possible because here in blockchain, all the records are available. And if when Alice does this transaction, okay, all the entities can see previous record to find out whether this transaction is valid or not. Okay. If Alice has 2 Bitcoins, only then Alice can send, say, 1.7 Bitcoins to others. Okay. Alice cannot send 2.5 Bitcoins because Alice doesn't have 2.5. She has just 2 Bitcoins. Now, since this information is available to all, then everyone who is looking and who are going to do consensus can look at these records and come to the conclusion. Okay, any questions? Any question? All right. Important properties are append only, cannot revise existing block and distribute it. This we have studied earlier. Question is, who records Bitcoin? Who maintains the Bitcoin blockchain? It's not the centralized mechanism. It's what everyone, right? And there are special types of users called miners. Now, miners can come and go. It's not exactly the same set of miners all the time. If you want to become miner, you can become miner too. And this is why should miners do all this activity? It's not really charity. When you deal with money, there is no charity. Right? Miners have some incentive. they earn commission out of that, right? Okay. So blockchain will have, this is last block that was earlier at time t, and one more block gets added to that at time t plus 1. Consensus. Okay, so basically every transaction has to be consented by miners. Okay, and now anybody can be a miner, by the way, right? So okay, now let's assume that there are 5 miners. Then consensus requires 3, to be honest. That's all. The whole blockchain will fail if number of people who are dishonest will be more than people who are honest. Okay. Now the question is that why people have any reason to be dishonest? Miners have no reason to be dishonest because they are incentivized to do correct things. So we look at this here. Every transaction is broadcasted to all users. Even you can see that. Okay. Now the question is that when a block is added, then one has to find out whether the block is valid or not. Or when a transaction, it means the block is nothing but a set of transactions, it has to be validated, and it's done by voting, and the majority wins. Okay. Now, assume that if I am a smart guy and I create multiple of these entities by myself, right? Then I can do the cheating. Okay, but this kind of things are not allowed. So this problem that we discussed just now is called a Sybil. And so there can be multiple identities belonging to same malicious user. Now, if they are, and all these entities are allowed to vote, then whole system will fail. So in order to prevent that, right? So now identities are based on the computing power. Okay. So let's assume that there is a one machine with each user. Then whatever identities I create, actual voting power will be 1 based on the computing power I have. Now that's interesting. Why? How to link identity to computing power here? Because now the assumption is that you need to spend money to create infrastructure, right? And you have to have some profit out of that, right? And you will gain nothing if you have very huge computing power, because all you need is to cheat is that huge amount of computing power, which is not possible even with a large organization. Now, then the next concept is proof of work. Okay. So not everyone is allowed to add block to blockchains. Only miners are allowed to add blocks to blockchain. Okay. And in order to allow that, miners have to do some computation and should be worthy enough. Okay. How one becomes worthy? Because any miner can add the block. The miners become worthy by doing some computation, or they have to solve some hash puzzle. The one who is able to do the hash puzzle earlier will win and add the block. Okay. Now, hash puzzle can be solved using brute force computation. Okay, it means that they will have to spend some computing power to solve the puzzle. For example, hash output must start with 33 0 bits. Okay. This is one example, right? I mean, you can increase the complexity of hash function, right? So it means that they have to do all the trials until they get exact hash output, which will have first 33 bits as 0. Okay, it is going to take certain number of cycles, right? And sometimes it may take I don't know, maybe in hours also, or minutes, maybe 3 4 minutes with huge large number of very high end machines. Okay, and we'll see how we can achieve that. Okay, so once miner solves proof of work, and that proof of work, it includes all the transactions it's had so far after checking they are correct, right? So once miner is able to solve this puzzle, he can create block. You see it here. Okay, so this is one block. The block is usually added every 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, and size is less than 1 MB. This is another block. Okay. And blocks keep getting added one after other. Okay, the first block was of course created by Satoshi on 2009. Okay, here is the example. Alice sends 1 Bitcoin to Bob, and this is a transaction, and this is visible by all, and all can verify this transaction going by because the complete blockchain is available to them, so they can look at different records corresponding to Alice. Okay. So just broadcast your transaction. Suppose I am making a transaction, then I will broadcast my transaction. So like Alice has transferred money to Bob. So that is sent to all miners with the hope that they will add the transaction in the next block. Okay, and they have, and important thing is that they will never add invalid transaction. Suppose if you have one Bitcoin available and you're sending Bitcoin doing two transactions, you're doing one to your first friend and another transaction is sending same money to other, it means that this transaction is invalid. So they will never add invalid transaction. It means that it's their responsibility to go through your back records and check everything is okay. And miners are incentivized to do this. And if any chain with invalid transaction itself is not valid, so any rational miner will not do it. Okay. Okay, let's come to the next. Now, Alice sends 1 Bitcoin to Bob. It's sent to all miners. All miners will look at it and validate this transaction. Okay. And now miners compete to create next block. So the miners will listen to all other transactions that are happening and try to create one block. Okay. And then in order to create block, they will have to solve a puzzle. And who solve the puzzle first wins, and then declare that I have created a block, and others will validate it and add it to the block. Okay. All right. Any question? Okay. All right. All right. So now question is that what is proof of work? Okay. Let's look at it. So it should be computationally hard to extend the chain, but the once a miner finds the extension, it will broadcast to everyone, and users will accept the longest chain that's valid one. Okay, this is the concept. Okay, so again, let's look at example. So these are the transactions not in the blockchain, and all miners will compete to create a block, right? That can be added, and they will get incentive if they can do so. And in order to see, everyone can collect transaction, but they will have to solve the puzzle to add the new block, right? And the one who will solve the puzzle or cryptographic puzzle will add the new block, and all will accept that. Okay? So this guy says that I have found the new block, It will communicate this to all, and they will accept it and add this to the blockchain. So new block gets added to the blockchain. All right. And then if there is a fork, let's assume that some records get added to only one chain, other will have incomplete addition. Only the long chain is considered to the valid one. Okay. So then everyone will have visibility of two chains, one longer chain and one shorter chain. Then since the longer chain is the valid one, so nobody will have then intentions or will add a new block to old chain, the smaller chain. So this smaller chain will become invalid. Only people will add to the longer chain. Okay. Because we know the majority follows the protocol of the longest chain. Right. So if this is a shorter chain, this will get discontinued, and then this chain will continue. All right. And this system is self-stabilizing system. The frequently asked questions you can ask: what happens if miner A and miner B at the same time solve the proof of work and append two blocks, thus forking the network? So in the previous example, at this stage, two miners have appended because they have solved the puzzle exactly at the same time. Then who will win? The answer is that, of course, this is visible to everyone, and whenever the next blocks get added, okay, some miner adds the next block, and then that block wins. Okay, so this miner who added this one will fail. Okay. Second question is that what happens if miner Mallory discards the last few blocks in the blockchain and miners from there? Answer is that it's not possible because she will need 50% power, computing power of the world to do so. So one person cannot have such a computing power. Another question is that a miner included your transaction in the latest block gateway, and you are guaranteed that your transaction is powered in the blockchain. No, that's not always possible, right? Because two miners can create two different blocks, okay, and they will append into existing blockchain, and these blocks could be different, hence one of the two will be accepted. Okay, now it means that now your transaction, although visible to everybody, then come in the next blocks that are going to get, but sooner or later it will get added. What happens if a miner who just mined a block refuses to add my transaction? I mean, I have made my transaction, like Alice has transferred Bitcoin to Bob, but the miner is not interested in including my transaction. Right? Because now the answer is that it's not possible because miners have incentive to do so. If one miner doesn't do, the next miner will do it, surely. Okay, all right. Let's skip this point. Okay. Hash function we have already studied, right? So we'll not go through it. The hash function that we use here is usually SHA-1 of 256 bits or 512 bits, right? So depending on, I think we are using right now SHA-2, which is 512 bits. Okay, we'll not go through it. We studied this in brief when we studied hash function. All you need to remember is that whatever we message size, output that hash function is of constant size or fixed size. Okay. Now, if there is a 1 bit that differs in message, then hash value should differ significantly in the output. So hash function in some sense gives the signature of the message. We'll see how we are going to use this function to create blockchain and how we are going to solve puzzle. Okay. Now, this is the data structure. It's a block. Now, first thing here, notice is the previous hash. Essentially, the value of previous hash here is nothing but hash of all this of previous block. Okay. And this gives a pointer. The value here is nothing but hash value of all these things here. Similarly, once you have added the block, do the hash of everything, and that will be the first field here in the next block. Okay. Second thing that's shown here is nonce. We'll see why we use nonce. Nonce is a integer or some kind of number that we are going to use, and it's unique. Okay. Now, notice that we are going to use nonce here for solving puzzles. Okay. So this is a data structure. This is the initial block. Let's assume B0. Now, the first field here is hash of B0. Okay. Second field is a nonce, and then the transaction. Okay. This is the block 1, B1. The block B2 will have, first we will take this block and use hash function and store the value of hash here, then nonce and transaction, and so on. Now notice that if there is some manipulation, right? If someone changes the value of transaction here, what will happen there? Then block B1 will become inconsistent because hash of this will not match with hash of value that's available here. All right. So anybody can find out that there has been manipulation. Let's assume that if person changes the value here also, all this will be caught here because of hash of this, which is dependent on hash of this, all this has a value here. So this value will be valid only there is no manipulation or no change in any of the blocks earlier. And that's the beauty. Right? It means that if anybody is trying to change anything in past transaction will be caught and the whole block will become invalid. Okay. Any question? Are you able to understand it? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go to PPT again to get the concept. It will require some reading. Okay. What I'm trying to tell you is that very top level. Right? You may have large number of questions based on that. Okay. Last. Okay. Again, this is a very simple data structure. Okay. It contains hash of. It contains a field that is nothing but hash of all previous transactions that has happened. Okay. Now, if anything in the past has been manipulated or changed by mistake or by cheating, then it will be reflect into the following block, and that's the beauty of it, right? Now we have still to answer that why we are using nonce. That will. Okay, so now let's see how we are going to mine Bitcoin. First thing is that join the network and listen for transactions. So if I am a miner, then I will join the network, listen for transactions. And then my job is to validate all the transactions. Say Alice is transferring money to Bob, then I will go to Alice records and see whether she has money or not and the transaction is valid or not. That's the first task that I'm going to do. Second task I'm going to do is that whenever a new block is added, right, a miner succeeds and adds a new block, then I'm going to append that new block after validating it into blockchain. So And third is that if I am able to, I will also try to create a block, assemble a new block, because I want to get incentive for doing that. And then what I need to do is that, see, I have collected transaction, validated and collect transaction, which is simple part. The tough part is that I have to win in the race of adding this to blockchain. And in order to do that, I have to solve a puzzle. Okay? So I will have to use nonce value, proper nonce value, such that I get exact some answer. Okay. Now this puzzle is announced to everyone. The puzzle could be first 10 bits of hash output should be all zeros, or first 3 bits could be zeros, depending on the complexity. Okay. So the puzzle is known to everyone, and then they will work on it. Okay. So okay. So fine. So hope everyone accepts a new block. Once you are able to do that and solve the puzzle, and submit it to everyone, and hope that everyone will accept that, and you get money for doing so. So here is the example. Please look at this very carefully. Okay, so there are 3 blocks existing in blockchain, and there is a pending transaction. Okay, multiple transactions. Like so, one transaction, for example, is that Alice sends 10 bitcoins to Bob, and there might be other transactions as well. Okay. Now, all these miners will look at the transactions, validate this transaction, try to create a block. Okay. Now, in order to commit new transactions, or in order to win, they have to solve a puzzle. So they have to calculate the hash value of previous block, because that is the first element in the next block. Okay. So previous block, as in the previous block is 3 here, it has to look at this, and then new transaction. New transactions are these ones, right? Alice sending 10 bitcoins to Bob and other transactions. And value of now, these 2 things are fixed, right? Kind of fixed. Previous block is known, new transaction, let's assume, are known, right? And now they have to find value of nonce such that they get, say, 3 zeros in the beginning. 0x shows is hex value, so 3 zeros. Okay. Now they have to try various values of nonce until they get in output first 3 bits of hash value as 0. Okay. They can attempt. Block 3, first block, last block is block 3. It will come here. New transaction are, of course, Alice sends 10 bitcoins to Bob, and possibly the miner will add bonus to itself. Okay. And then other transactions. Okay. So all these are known things. And then he has to try various value of nonce such that he gets first 3 bits as 0. So we'll try this. Right? So that, for example, he will, each attempt will have 16 raised power minus 3 chance of success. So the probability is very low. So it means that is computationally tough problem. So we will try first value, let's assume as nonce value as 2CF24, and he will get some value output, right? DBA, whatever. So this is not a correct thing. All we need is 3 zeros. Then we'll try the number. We'll get different value. Third number is some value. Then keep trying and until he gets 3 zeros here. So now he has solved this puzzle, and now he will create a block, new block, and submit to others. And who does it first wins. Okay. So now he has created new block, submits to all miners, and they will validate it, and the block will get added. All right, that's it. Got it? So that's all about blockchain and how blocks are created, how transactions are validated, blocks are created, and blocks are added. And you see the whole process is distributed and it's transparent. It means that is visible to everyone. Okay, let's try. Blockchain and Bitcoins are becoming extremely popular. Okay. Had you bought of had you bought a Bitcoin right in the beginning, so now it has become thousands of times since then. So it's a whole value of the currency is also increasing. So many people have just bought Bitcoins and kept it with themselves, and over some time the value has gone up multiple times. So, however, more than that, Bitcoin is becoming a universal currency of transactions. Truly universal in the sense that there is no conversion of currency, right? So it might become very popular in future. Second thing is that blockchain is important data structure used for Bitcoin. So blockchain has many other uses that we will, if we have time in future, we'll study how blockchain can be used for different kind of transactions, different kind of applications. Okay. It's based on public knowledge, is distributed, is hash chained audit log of all transactions. It's based on cryptography because identity of a person is based on his public key and for private key. Identity. So it means that everybody outside will not. For example, I am a user of Bitcoin. Nobody will know that my name is Ravi. They will know that there is an entity with a public key, and the Bitcoin and blockchain also use hashing. We have seen two uses of hashing, right? First is that to append a block, we will create hash of the previous block, and that will be first field. That is essentially to link different blocks and make sure that if anything becomes inconsistent, or if there's a fraud or there's a manipulation, that will become visible to subsequent blocks. Okay. And second use is in order to solve a puzzle. The key attributes are decentralization, distributed ledger, consensus, and immutability. We have studied all these concepts. It is possible to convert Bitcoin to real money, and just check how much a Bitcoin costs now in terms of dollars and how it was costing when it was invented. And you can also see on internet, how its values has changed over time. If you want to see the live blockchain, go to this website and see blockchain. Question is that is Bitcoin legal in India? Yes, we have answered this in the beginning. It's illegal. All right, that's all.